Hello everyone! Just notice how many interesting and intricate forms are out there. Look, here is a playground. There are many interesting different forms like triangles or rectangles, and everything what you can see here, you can also see in a human body. So, because I am particularly fond of drawing a human figure, I would like to use a book of Andrew Loomis, an American illustrator, in order to learn how to draw a human figure. Nowadays, this book is considered a bit of outdated. In English translation, it is Drawing Human Figure for All It's Worth. So this is a really famous book, and this covers basically the most basic fundamentals of drawing a human figure. That is really famous, and there are the most important concepts covered in this book, like what is a line, what is a point, what is a outline, etc. How to draw a human figure, how to make sketches, how to draw proportions, etc. So this is really useful, and I'm gonna use this as my guide. What is great about this book? Andrew Loomis outlined some key concepts. First of all, what is a line? Also, he explained why it's important to learn exactly how to draw a human figure and know some random shapes or outlines. He also gave some hints at how to use perspective, proportions, shading, lighting, and different materials in order to create a compelling look. For example, he explained what is a line and how it is different from just a shape. According to Andrew Loomis, line is meant to outline a certain silhouette. Let's say, let's imagine that you have a figurine, that's a statue of a human body, and if you rotate it 90 degrees to right or to the left, then you will have a different form, and the line will also be different. But what's important, the line also depends on what lighting is it, what shading is there, and how you see this figure, like from what angle. So all of those concepts are really important to create exactly that figure that has a mood, that has a story to it, and that is just interesting to look at. Also, according to Andrew Loomis, that's very important to know how to draw a human figure correctly. So he advises us to use a certain standard, like a set of proportions, that roughly divides the human body into 8 heads. By 8 heads, I mean that you should roughly divide human body into sections, and each section equals to 1 human head. So I'll find some of them here. Well, one of them is here. Then you can see this. We have a figure of a male body, and that is roughly divided into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 8, and even 9. Sometimes even 9 heads. That is a pretty standard measure. Some artists use it even nowadays. But also he says that this is not universal, so sometimes you may change the proportions if you want to. On top of that, Andrew Loomis also noticed that you shouldn't be ashamed of your original story and like where you come from. For example, if you are just a rural person who came from a rural country, then you shouldn't be ashamed of this, and you should portray something that is important and familiar to you instead of just trying to follow a common trend. And just a bit of practice. For example, let's imagine that we are trying to draw a line. A line could be something like a straight line. It can also be a curly wave line. It can be a random line with a varying density, and that can be something like a figure that is, for example, dance here, but instead of making a full outline, we would just accentuate this. We would highlight this, and there, and eventually we would get a form. Then we can say that this is a circle and not a triangle, for example. And also, if we create a figure like a pyramid, we can draw this like this, but also we can make some thin lines in the background, and that means that we can create a volume. So just by making those over-exaggerated lines in the foreground, we can actually create a sense of depth. And that is only using a single line with a single graphite pencil. Just imagine that. That's crazy. You can create a volume just using one single stroke. Amazing. And that's exactly what Andrew Loomis is trying to teach us, to learn to observe, to learn to make observations and to draw from references. That's wonderful. Andrew Loomis has also made another important point. He stated that you should be able to draw from natural poses, from natural models, and sometimes those models are implying to be nude, so you should not be ashamed of drawing a nude model, and if you are ashamed, then, well, you would be better not drawing, you would be better quitting drawing. But in this case, let's assume that we are very open-minded. So basically, I tried drawing from a natural pose, from a natural model at an art gallery. That was a couple of days ago, and that was really very refreshing experience, because when you see a natural model, you are not thinking too much, you just draw. But instead, when you don't have an opportunity to draw from a natural model, that's no worries. You can draw from a reference or from a photography. For example, here we have this cover book. This is a hardcover, so basically we can just draw from this hardcover. Why not? This is a pure reference. So let's imagine that we have a head. We can draw it roughly with an oval like this, and I would advise you not to be over exaggerating the lines. Just draw it. It may be messy, but it doesn't mind. Look, it doesn't matter. So don't be over precise. Just draw something like this, and voila, you have a circle. So secondly, you can draw a head, like a neck, something like this. Once again, not over precise. Then we can create something like a torso. By torso, I mean that we can create, draw several circles. Then we can create an abdomen. Then we can connect this, and voila, we have something that resembles a rib cage, for example. And also we can prolong this into create an abdomen. Then we can draw pelvis or anything like this. And of course I know this is extremely messy, this is nothing from correct, but it's just to illustrate the concept. Then we can create something like femur bone, then like this. Then also we can create ankles, then feet, also a circle, this, and this. Then of course we have hands, and of course it should have a line, and of course somewhere here we can make some hair. So as you see, this is extremely messy, but just to illustrate the concept that here we have our geometric figures, and I'm not thinking too much about this. I just using the plain line, and just look, if I just make some quick adjustments like this, like this, like this, like this, and then maybe like this. Then imagine that it protrudes here, then this. So once again, I'm not pondering too much about how does it look. It looks absolutely messy once again, but still, it just illustrates the concept. Of course, Andrew Loomis advises you to learn anatomy, but still it is another chapter, so I would like to cover some anatomy basics in another chapter of this diary. But just to finish, I would do this, this, and this. And once again, voila, here we have something very resembling of a female figure. Here we have face, we have, once again, we have eyes, we have nose, however that may look, and then we have a mouth, and of course somewhere here we have an ear. And just to illustrate, here we have a hand wrist. So something like this. So what have I done here? I just made a drawing from a reference from this hardcover of my book. And what have I got? I have got a very rough illustration. Once again, it's extremely messy, you see this, but just to illustrate the concept. That is how it should work. You should be able to catch those little differences, to be able to read them, and then to replicate them on a piece of paper. So, once again, just be very, very brave. Train as much as you can, and also be extremely attentive. Notice everything, draw everything, and eventually you will get this inner feeling how a human body should work. So, once again, thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the like and subscribe button. Subscribe, see the updates, and stay tuned. I'm preparing another videos from this video diary cycle. So, bye bye.